We started off this week's report with a little tribute to 4 true Delta legends. D. Thomas, father of flipping. Cooch Kachia, longtime guide, instructor, and seemed to be personal friend to everyone who ever fished the Delta. Bobby Barrick gave us Bobby's perfect frog, opened up a whole new world of frog fishing for all of us. And Dave Glebe, possibly the best tournament angler of all time that ever fished the Delta. If you're not familiar with these guys, Dee and Cooch, they both passed on. Bobby and Dave still with us, still in the game, and still contributing to bass fishing. So keep these guys in your memory as you fish the Delta. And with that, we're going to take a look at a few pictures, then we'll get right into the report. All right, we're tucked in here now. We're ready to give you guys another great report, but I will just say that conditions are changing out here. You see what the weather's doing. Water temperatures are dropping. Things are changing. So keep in mind that what I'll be talking about today, the up-to-date information, could change tomorrow. Mother Nature is holding the cards, and as much as we all like to be able to say we can predict what's going to go on in the next couple weeks, it's just not up to us, especially this time of year. So with that, I will be running through all the information that you need. I have a short interview with Christian Ostrander. Christian and I sat down and talked quite a bit this week, and I wanted Christian to give his ideas on maybe some helpful hints that you guys can use as we transition into the winter months. So at the end of the, as we do the report, we'll stick that interview in there. Christian talks about the baits that he uses, the places that he likes to fish, and just how he deals with the changing from late fall into winter. The first thing that I want to do is talk about safety. Coach Ted and I we were out, I think, Monday. Boy, we hit some fog. We were on the channel, and I'd say maybe 100 feet visibility. We had to really slow down, be very cautious. You guys are going to start seeing fog out here. I think we were out here probably 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and the fog was still out here. So I imagine if we had gotten out early, it would have been much thicker. But we're going to be seeing fog. We have a lot of debris that's being pushed down the river. I've seen a couple of big trees already floating down the river, so slow down, be careful, and be safe. Also, I'd like to let everybody know that the Honker Cut Bridge, this is the bridge that goes over Honker Cut. That is the cut right outside of King Island, right by the launch ramp. It connects White Slough and Disappointment Slough. There is more construction on that bridge, underneath the bridge. This is the bridge that everyone had, we'll say, a few incidents on. Some people hit that bridge. The construction is marked, but it is hard to see. So if you're not paying attention when you are going under the Honker Cut Bridge, be very careful. Let's talk a little bit about a couple of the tournaments coming up. The first one I want to talk about is the Bass Hole Team Open. That's going to be this weekend, October 25th and 26th, out at Russo's. This is the high roller, low roller format. If you have any questions, call Rob at 925-813-9485. So that's the Bass Hole Team Tournament. Also, the Fairfield Sassoon Bass Reapers, for you guys that are up around the Berryessa area, you're looking for a tournament. They're having the 2025 Lake Berryessa Open Saturday, November 22nd. So that is the Fairfield Sassoon Bass Reapers Open. The next tournament I want to give a little shout out to is the Yamamoto Team Tournament coming up at Clear Lake. This is going to be October 25th. I believe that is this Saturday. If you want to check in early, Friday, the 24th, you can go to Clear Lake Outdoors, check in at the shop between 3 and 4:30. They're going to have the tournament meeting between 5 and 6, and that's going to be at Clear Lake Outdoors. You can give them a call. We're going to have a report for Clear Lake here in just a minute, but that is the Yamamoto Team Open. Let's get into the reports, and we will talk about Don Pedro, we'll talk about Clear Lake, we'll talk about the Delta, stripers, largemouth, and salmon. With that being said, everyone that I've talked to, no matter where you're fishing, it's changing. The bite is slowing down, the bigger fish are hard to come by, and it's just a day-to-day see what happens type of thing, so keep that in mind. Let's talk about Don Pedro first. I talked to Aaron out at Central Valley Bait and Tackle. Don Pedro has slowed down in the last couple weeks. No real pattern going on, still catching fish. The big fish are hard to come by. He's suggesting that you run the bank, you throw a lot of fast-moving baits, jerk baits, LVs, crankbaits. If you find the fish, you can slow down and fish plastics. There's no one particular technique it's just kind of a junk fishing situation, waiting for what's going on at with the weather. The lake is 70% full. And there's going to be rain, which is going to influx some water. There's going to be water levels that are dropping due to make way for the rain. So Don Pedro's going to be kind of a wait and see. If you have any questions, call Aaron out at Central Valley Bait and Tackle, 209-404-4138. That's Don Pedro. Clear Lake, I got a report from my buddy Nino Spell. Nino is one of the great employees they have out at Clear Lake Outdoors. Nino also says it's just junk fishing, running the bank. Big fish are hard to come by. There's no end in sight to the 1 to 3 pound fish with occasional 3 or 4 pound fish. Just a matter of going out and junk fishing. And he's also talking about LV 500s, worms. Just get out. A-rigs will be coming into play pretty soon. Sometime in the near future, the weather is going to actually pull into a winter pattern, and we're going to start seeing the A-rig bite come up, and that's when we can really start looking for some of those bigger fish. Let's get right into the Delta report, and I want to start off by saying that the salmon season is open as of now. For those of you who are going to want to maybe fish salmon and maybe bring one home, you've got, I think, the next 3 or 4 days after the first salmon season closes. With that being said, the salmon season for me up until now has been pretty meager. There was a lot of reports coming that they were getting a lot of fish up around New Hope. I have not seen a lot of fish in the system. I see a few fish everywhere I go. I took a ride up the McCollum last week, looked up and down beaver, hog, sycamore. I saw a few fish, but not in the numbers that I'd like to see for guys like myself who are bass fishermen that want to come out and maybe throw some LV 500s or jerk baits and just kind of sport fish for them. They need to be grouped up a little bit more. With that being said, I talked to my buddy, the fishing king. I talked to Eddie. Eddie's been out there 6-7 trips. He's also said that the fishing, the salmon fishing has been, real inconsistent. He's seen days where there have been more fish coming through the system, but that's one day. The next day, those fish seem to be gone. He had one trip where him and his partners got 6 fish, one trip. Every other trip they've had has been 1 or 2 fish. I think it was Monday, or no, excuse me, it was last Friday when I was up there. There had to be 30 boats in the McCollum. I didn't see any action going. I had a couple fish swipe at a couple of my lures, but never hooked up with one. I will say one thing, congratulations to all you guys up there. The trollers were out, the jig fishermen out. I'm sure there were striper guys out there. There were bass fishermen going up and down the river. Really congested. Everybody got along. Everybody was slowing down. Everybody was, giving as much right to the other fishermen to fish where they wanted and how they wanted to fish. And that doesn't always happen out here. Especially, I do a lot of bass fishing, and a lot of times we don't have the best reputation with a lot of these guys, blowing by them and, you know, doing this and claiming water, so on and so forth. But everybody was, you know, just fishing together, and although the fishing wasn't great, it was a great day. Sure, guys got out, had a little fun, and you know, just a good job for everybody that was out there watching out for everyone else. The Delta conditions out here, water temperatures are dropping slightly. I'm seeing about, I've got reports from 64, 65 degrees all the way up to 68 degrees. I'm seeing temperatures around 66 to 68. With this weather, the way it's going right now, I'm sure that's going to be dropping. Water clarity is really no problem out here. It is, you know, you get back in these sloughs up around Beaver, Hog in there. Shoot, you have 7-8 feet visibility. I was out at Frank's track yesterday. That had, I'll say, 4 feet of visibility. Central Delta, 4 feet of visibility. I have noticed that the biomass of bait, the little shad that were in the last couple of weeks that seem to be everywhere, they're still around, but they're less prevalent. I think they have gone deeper. Also, I've seen a lack of sea lions, and when I say a lack of sea lions, that means that fewer than normal. I have, the Fish King said that there were a ton of sea lions up around New Hope. They're probably, you know, got a lot of those salmon pinned up in smaller spots, so maybe they're up there looking at the salmon. But down around the Central Valley, or the Central Delta, up and down the channel, Frank's Track, Old River, Middle River, White Slough, there's just not, there's a few of them. You see them, you know, they're hunting, but, you know, another sign that there's probably not a lot of stripers and probably not a lot of salmon that are grouped up, at least in the Central Valley. Let's talk about stripers again. Great striper fishing happening out west. Grizzly Island, Pittsburgh, Antioch, up and down the Sacramento River. They're getting some big fish out at Liberty, but the fishing here in the Central Delta just has not been that good. And I'm talking about, I'll say, from Big Break on down into here. As I said, I was looking around down in Frank's Track just yesterday, and it was a terrible day to be fishing, I'll tell you that, at least for stripers. 75 degrees, sun high, no wind, just glass. Even out at Frank's Track, everything is just glass. I was looking around the inlets, looking around the moving water. I couldn't find any stripers balled up. I looked there, I looked Mildred, in Connection Slough, you know, up and down, back and forth here around Paradise Point. I just couldn't find a big concentration of stripers. Ted and I were out the other day. I think we caught one legal striper and some small ones. We were fishing up and down the channel. They're just not in here in the numbers that they should be, and when they are, they're moving. So hopefully this big flush of rain that's supposed to come in, maybe that'll push these fish that are out west back into the system here, or into the system. With that, let's go over some bass fishing, a couple of the tournaments that happened last week. Then we will have a little interview with Christian. He'll tell you what he thinks is going to go on. Then I'll finish up with my take, what I've seen in the last couple of days. So we had the South Delta Rats tournament last week, and I got a report from Cam Cardoza, who's usually out there fishing with him. I don't think he fished the tournament, but his report was extra crappie. The tournament was won with 11 pounds, a little over 11 pounds, 11 and a half pounds. They had a big fish of 3.7 pounds, and they've had tough time. All these guys are good fishermen. They like fishing the South, and the South just hasn't been producing for the South Delta Rats the last couple weeks. It's getting tougher and tougher. Also had the Anglers Press Pro Team Tournament. That was a 2-day tournament. It was won with 39 pounds. Congratulations to Mark Mello and Joe Hernandez. There were a lot of big sticks in this tournament. 39 pounds is not a bad weight. Actually, they had, who was it? Mark Lassane and Zach were out, his partner Zach. They had one bag that was 24.4 pounds. Great job on that. But the bottom line is, middle of the pack, they were getting about, what I have down here, about 12 pounds per day. And these are experienced tournament anglers. 12 pounds a day, middle of the pack for a tournament is not great. A lot of big fish. They had an 8.8 big fish for the tournament. They had 12 fish over 5 pounds. Here's one thing that I did notice. 9 of those big fish were caught on Saturday, only 3 of them on Sunday. Kind of shows you what the ups and downs of the Delta, at least with the big fish. And I have a feeling that I know Mark who had the 24-pound bag with his friend Zach. He's a hardcore puncher out here. I'm pretty sure he was punching. I do not know Mark and Joe, the guys that won it. I know of them, and I have a feeling that those guys also were punching, and they found a mat or two or a couple areas where they were able to get those fish. And if you weren't on those fish, if you were a normal big stick out here that just didn't find the fish, you probably had 12 pounds. So that's the tournament situation. With that, knowing how the weather's changing, how it's going to be day to day, let's get into a short interview. Well, actually, it's about a 5-minute interview with Christian Ostrander. He'll give you his ideas on what's going to go on here in the next couple weeks. We're sitting out here enjoying a nice sunny, I'll say, pre-winter day.
We are, aren't we?
But we're coming into some tough times out here. Before we get into that dead of winter, let's talk about from now, which is late fall, into the winter. And obviously, we've been talking, you and I, a little bit about topwater this time of year. And you're kind of telling me that, yeah, it can happen, but it's just not consistent enough. You don't believe in, from this time out, really concentrating on a topwater.
Man, you don't need to throw topwater. Guy, you could catch a topwater fish all year long on the Delta, but you don't really play with that stuff.
It's kind of a risk we were.
Yeah. You know, they bite a plopper and a spook and a froggood in November, but it tapers big time. So forget about that. Back the drags off the topwaters.
3 baits that you're always going to have and that you're going to throw here on the Delta when that water temperature drops below 60 degrees.
I always got a chatterbait on the deck. We catch a lot of nice chatterbait fish, even December, January, if you just keep it in your hand. I mean, Delta fish live shallow, so we're throwing a chatter, we're throwing a jerkbait, and a Senko is a must. So a Senko is a phenomenal big fish bait. December, January, February. And you can throw a trap a little bit. A trap's a great bait. That's something I've really started throwing the last 2 years on the Delta, is gaining a lot of confidence in that and just ripping it around in the grass. It's got to be in their face, We get these baits around them, somewhat near them, and they bite them when it's warmer. No, December, January, late November. No, you gotta get it. You gotta put it next to them.
Do you have a color that you like for the chatterbait or the worm?
Gosh, I've never been crazy about shad, but man, the last 2 years it's been about a shad. You gotta have a nice clear shaddish chatterbait. They love that, or a green. We're not going too bright of an orange, but a nice green with some orange in it, or some red. So
how about when you talk about worms, how are you rigging that worm? Are you throwing a T-rig? You throwing a weightless Senko like a wacky, or should you be throwing maybe a drop shot?
I'm not crazy about the drop shot too much in the dead of winter. I know guys crush them on it, but I don't know about that. I throw a wacky Senko for. I just throw a owner mosquito hook. A 1-aught, bam, ring in the middle, done. It's all about where you're throwing that. So
straight braid.
I throw it on 17, 20-pound fluoro, so it does not matter on the Delta. It does not matter what line size. You want to get them 5-pounders in the box.
Do you have a preference in open water, around boats, around docks, or is it Thule, rock, open water? What are you fishing in the winter?
Oh, they're always on rocks regardless. They're always on rocks, but we like to fish a lot of marinas. So marinas are good. Marinas hold a lot of giant fish. All the shad are in these marinas, in these dead end areas, like always. So basically that, and grass. Grass is everything on the Delta. There's great grass in December. There's great grass in January. So good grass, If you're throwing a trap and you're throwing a chatter and stuff, you're going to get the grass.
Okay. Well, that about covers it. So, Christian, that gives some people something to think about, and let's end it at that, and we'll
Yeah.
get up and go out and go and do a little fishing.
We're gonna
and
try.
talk about what's going on with that.
Yeah, I'll also be guiding on the Delta till about middle of December or so.
And I'll let you guys know where Christian is and what he's doing, and he'll be on from time to time to let you guys know where he's guiding if he's not on the Delta, because I definitely want to keep up with Don Pedro and Clear Lake, because we all know, January, February, it's going to get tough here on the Delta. So, Christian?
Absolutely. Thanks,
Thanks
Steve,
a
for
lot.
having me on, like
All right.
always.
All right, let's get back to the report.
I want to thank Christian for coming on with me, taking the time to give his thoughts on what he's going to be looking for in the next couple of weeks. Maybe it'll help all of us to take some of his advice and come out and help us to catch a few more fish. With that being said, I've been out here quite a bit, pretty much every other day, and the fishing has slowed down a lot. Still a lot of small fish out here, a lot of rats that are under the 12-inch keeper size. And whether you're talking about a tournament fish that's 13 or 14 inches, those fish thin out a little bit. Still quite a few 2.5 to 3 pound fish, but man, after that 4 pound mark, these fish get few and far between. I think most of the big fish are being caught punching. Everyone that I talked to and everyone that has sent in reports, and I want to thank you guys, because a lot of the reports coming in aren't fantastic. Hey, I'm having a great time. We're out here, we're putting one foot in front of the other. Junk fishing, a lot of worm fish coming in, a lot of jerkbait fish, a lot of fish coming in on chatterbaits. The topwater bite has died off, and that seems to be to a man. All of these guys that are sending in reports, they're catching fish, they're getting 1 or 2 nice fish. The weather's been beautiful out here, which is going to be changing, obviously. I've seen the same thing. I'm getting most of my fish on jerkbaits. I have been throwing a few plastics, slower with the plastics, and really the size hasn't increased. You would think, when I'm flipping things like the Bronco bug and 6-inch plastic worms, I would have a little better size, but you just have to wade through the smaller fish out here. It's junk fishing. I would say choose your pattern, the patterns that you like to fish. If you like fishing a jerkbait, it's been a lot of fun. I know Coach Ted is just still reeling on him with that Mini Max Green Pumpkin Z-Man chatterbait. That's working really well for Coach. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but the topwater fishing is a few people reporting a few fish coming in on topwater. But all in all, it's slowing down. Let's see what the storm brings, and we'll see what happens next week. Be safe when you're out there. Remember, the fog's coming in. It's getting colder out here. Try to keep your life vest on. And with that, thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys next week. Be safe until then.